She trusted him, a friendly face in a world she thought was safe. But lurking behind that warmth was a predator, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Her innocence became his weapon, exploiting her trust with chilling precision until her life was forever scarred by his dark intentions. This is one of the most heartbreaking stories of a young girl whose innocent trust was exploited by someone she thought she could rely on. What began as a bond turned into a nightmare as dark intentions shattered her world, leaving scars that would last a lifetime. On a bitter February morning in 2021, the sleepy town of Canton awoke to a chilling mystery. Sandra Birchmore, a young woman with dreams and a child on the way, had vanished from sight, sparking worry among friends and co-workers. Desperation took hold as they pleaded with police to uncover the reason for her silence. When officers arrived at her apartment complex, a suffocating sense of dread filled the air. Outside, Sandra's car lay buried under layers of untouched snow, a haunting symbol of time frozen and life stalled. With the property manager's help, they opened her door, stepping into a dimly lit space filled with the eerie glow of Christmas lights. The living room lay undisturbed, a snapshot of a life paused. But as they entered Sandra's bedroom, an unsettling discovery awaited. There she was, seated upright on the floor, a black strap around her neck tethered to the closet doorknob. Her cell phone lay inches away, as if she had fought for one last call for help. At first glance, the scene appeared to whisper of tragedy, a young woman lost to despair. But those closest to Sandra knew better. She was vibrant, full of hope, and eagerly awaiting her future. Her cousin, Barbara Wright, sensed a darkness beneath the surface, saying, "We didn't believe it was a suicide. Was Sandra's tragic end really self-inflicted? Or did someone else have a hand in her fate?" The haunting questions demanded answers, and her loved ones vowed to uncover the truth behind Sandra's final moments. Sandra was a bright and hopeful girl with long, shiny auburn hair and a sprinkle of freckles on her nose. She dreamed of becoming a police officer one day, idolizing the brave men and women in uniform who protected her community. But Sandra's life was not easy. At school, she often faced bullying, and at home, she struggled to help her sick mom, Denise. Sandra Birchmore's childhood was like a puzzle with missing pieces, and her home life was filled with shadows. She wasn't a bad kid. She just wanted to be noticed. A teacher who remembered Sandra said she could see the signs of neglect. Sandra often acted out, hoping someone would pay attention to her. When she was 9, she and her mom, Denise, joined a program called Strengthening Families. It was supposed to help families like theirs learn how to communicate better and support each other. Denise found the program helpful and realized that instead of yelling, it was better to sit down and talk things out. But even with this new knowledge, life remained tough for Sandra. At school, things didn't get any easier. Her 7th grade teacher, Andrea Wasoka, noticed that Sandra craved attention and sometimes exaggerated stories to get it. She got along better with adults than with kids her age, which made her feel even more alone. Other children teased her relentlessly, and when she tried to ask for help from teachers, it only seemed to make things worse. By the time Sandra turned 12, she was desperate to find a place where she belonged. In March 2010, she signed up for the Stoughton Police Explorers program, hoping to connect with others who shared her dreams of becoming an officer. Although she was waitlisted at first, she became a standby member and watched as Officer Robert Devine led the group with strict discipline. It felt like a military camp rather than a supportive community. Meanwhile, behind the scenes of the police department, trouble brewed. Officer Anthony Bickerton was caught in a scandal involving stolen goods and corrupt deals that had been going on for years. Despite these issues within the police department, Sandra admired officers deeply. Her grandfather figure, Gerald Gadet, had been a decorated Army veteran who encouraged her dreams of law enforcement. When Gerald passed away in May 2012, Sandra felt lost without his guidance. Her cousin Barbara Wright remembered how devastated Sandra was. It was as if her guiding star had vanished from her life. As time went on, Matthew Farwell joined the Stoughton Police Force and became an instructor in the Explorers program. He began meeting Sandra after school at the local library to help her with homework. But while Sandra hoped for guidance in her studies, Farwell had other intentions that were far from innocent. In June 2019, he sent her a shocking text that revealed his true feelings. "Did you think I wouldn't want to fuck you?" This message turned their relationship into something dark and confusing for Sandra. What started as a safe space for learning quickly transformed into something dangerous. On April 10, 2013, when she was just 15 years old, she and Matthew Farwell crossed a line that would haunt her for years to come. According to documents later revealed by the FBI, that day marked the first time they were intimate. Farwell seemed proud of this moment, even years later. In messages he sent Sandra in 2019 and 2020, he asked her personal questions about that day, like, "What was the first day you said, 'OMG, I want this guy to be my first?'" He even reminisced about how he would have been with her when she was just 14, as if it was something to brag about. Sandra, caught in a whirlwind of emotions, told him how she felt on that day. She wrote that she had butterflies and called it the best day of my life, but beneath those words lay confusion and fear. She started to think about Farwell in a way that made her uncomfortable. She texted him about her worries, saying she didn't want him to react badly because of their age difference. Farwell's messages often made her feel trapped. He once told her that he could have easily taken advantage of her without any protection if he wanted to. Even though Farwell was married to another woman by May 2013, his relationship with Sandra didn't end. They continued to meet secretly while he was on duty as a police officer. The FBI later uncovered shocking details about their encounters. Farwell used their relationship in harmful ways, punishing Sandra for things like getting bad grades or not sharing her phone location. He introduced dangerous behaviors into their relationship that left Sandra feeling scared and confused. Despite all this turmoil, Sandra worked hard at school and made impressive progress. She was on track to graduate on time, showing everyone around her that she could rise above her difficult circumstances. In spring 2014, her mother wrote a heartfelt letter to Officer Robert Devine, thanking him and the Stoughton Police Department for their support in the Explorers program. It seemed like a small victory in a world filled with challenges. But behind the scenes, Sandra's life was becoming increasingly complicated and dark. On a sunny June day in 2015, Sandra Birchmore felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as she hurried across the Stoughton High football field to collect her diploma. The wind fluttered the American flag behind her as she walked across the stage in her cap and gown, her auburn hair neatly tied back. It was a moment she had dreamed of for years, but little did she know that this achievement would soon be overshadowed by a series of heartbreaking events. That summer marked the beginning of a difficult time for Sandra. With high school and the Police Explorers program behind her, she found herself feeling lost and without direction. Meanwhile, Matthew Farwell's life seemed to be thriving. By May 2016, he and his wife had moved into a beautiful 4-bedroom house in North Easton, where they were raising their 2 children. It felt as if everything was going right for him while Sandra's world was falling apart. Tragedy struck in May when Sandra's mother passed away suddenly from a massive stroke at only 52 years old. Her cousin Barbara Wright remembered how devastated Sandra was, saying, "It was horrible. Sandra was shattered." Just a month later, Sandra faced another loss when Claire Gadet, the woman she had always thought of as her grandmother, died at the age of 89. With both of these important figures gone, Sandra felt completely alone. Though her aunts moved into her childhood home to help her, things were tense between them. In May 2020, an argument with one of her aunts escalated so much that they called the police, worried about Sandra's well-being. Officers took her to the hospital for an evaluation, but after a short assessment, medical staff determined she wasn't in danger and sent her home just hours later. Around this time, Farwell began sending Sandra flirtatious texts again. When she apologized for worrying him during the incident with her aunt, he replied casually, "I wasn't worried. I know you are fine." Despite everything happening in her life, Sandra still dreamed of becoming a police officer and enrolled in a criminal justice program at Massasoit Community College. However, her relationship with Farwell grew darker and more troubling. He started sending her disturbing messages about sexual fantasies that made her uncomfortable. One message read that he wanted to hold you down by your throat while I pound you, making it clear that he wanted to exert control over her in ways that felt wrong. Sandra also began seeing other men during this time, including Farwell's twin brother, William Billy Farwell, who was also a police officer in Stoughton. Her friend Haley Souza described how Matthew Farwell used his authority to manipulate Sandra while William acted like the sweet one, creating a confusing and unhealthy dynamic between them. It was like a twisted game of good cop and bad cop that left Sandra feeling trapped. Things took an even stranger turn when Robert Devine, the very officer who had first mentored Sandra in the Explorers program, began reaching out to her online using a fake name inspired by a character from the movie Lethal Weapon. He communicated with Sandra about sexual acts while he was on duty as a police officer. Haley said it was clear that Sandra was being manipulated and controlled by these men. They told her to do things and send pictures and videos of it. She became trapped in a world where she felt she had no voice. The content of their messages and the nature of what they asked her to do were so shocking that one investigator later said he wished he could wash his eyes out with holy water after seeing them. As Sandra navigated through this chaotic life filled with betrayal and manipulation, it became painfully clear that the people she once admired had turned into figures of darkness instead of protectors. The dreams she held close were slipping away as she struggled to find her way through the shadows surrounding her. As the days turned into months, Sandra Birchmore found herself caught in a whirlwind of confusion and desperation. One day, she learned that a video featuring her with a U.S. Army recruiter had made its way into federal custody. This happened after she had asked William Farwell, the man she had complicated feelings for, to help her connect with someone in the military. Sandra wanted to become a police officer and thought that joining the Army would help her achieve that dream. William introduced her to an Army buddy, and soon they became friends on Facebook, which was against Army rules. Eventually, they crossed a line, and their encounter was recorded and shared with William. The recruiter, who used to be a public face for Army recruitment, disappeared from his job after the scandal. Amid all this chaos, Sandra began to dream of something that could bring her joy, a baby. She talked about becoming a mother all the time, sharing her hopes with her friend Haley Souza. She had a plan, Haley recalled. No matter what, she was going to have a baby, but this desire led Sandra to spend too much money on pregnancy tests and borrow money from Haley to feed her obsession. Their friendship began to strain under the weight of Sandra's fixation. Haley warned her that trying so hard to get pregnant might put her in danger. In late December 2020, Sandra sat down with colorful magic markers and a poster board. With careful handwriting, she wrote, "Congrats, we are going to be parents," and decorated it with cute stickers of baby animals. Excitedly, she sent a picture of it to Matthew Farwell, hoping for joy in return. But Farwell's reaction was not what she expected. "I have literally nothing to say right now," he replied coldly. When she insisted they would keep the baby, he responded with uncertainty, saying they needed to talk. Sandra felt empowered as she navigated this new chapter in her life. Recently, she had secured a job as a teacher's assistant at East Elementary School and moved into her own cozy apartment in Canton with help from her cousin Barbara Wright. She was also pursuing classes in nursing while continuing to chase her dream of becoming a police officer. However, everything changed when Sandra learned some shocking news from Joshua Heel, an animal control officer in Stoughton. He revealed that Matthew Farwell was expecting another child with his wife. This revelation hit Sandra hard. It felt like another blow in a series of betrayals. In her pain and anger, she confided in Joshua about everything. Her secret relationships with the Farwells and Robert Devine, along with the disturbing messages Matthew had sent her. Feeling bold after learning about Matthew's new child on the way, Sandra decided it was time to take control of her situation. She drafted a message meant for Farwell's wife that would expose their long-standing affair but hesitated before sending it. Instead, she confronted Matthew directly and made him an ultimatum. If he wanted her silence about their relationship, he would have to agree to unprotected sex so they could try for the baby she so desperately wanted. Farwell agreed but added his own twisted conditions for their encounters. He told Sandra that she should pretend to resist him during their meetings because he enjoyed that kind of power over her. In their conversations, it was clear that Sandra was determined to conceive and willing to do whatever it took to make it happen. She promised Matthew that she wouldn't speak badly about his wife or children because they both wanted something from each other. He wanted control over her while she sought love and family. Sandra Birchmore's determination finally paid off. After many disappointing pregnancy tests, she was overjoyed when she saw a positive result. But just as she began to dream about her future as a mother, her fragile relationship with Matthew Farwell began to unravel. A colleague of Farwell's had heard rumors about their secret affair and told him that one of Sandra's friends had contacted the police station to expose their illicit sexual relationship. Panic set in for Farwell, and he quickly messaged Sandra, saying, "I literally can't believe this is even real life, like what else do I have to worry about now?" His words showed how scared he was that everything might fall apart. In January, Sandra confided in her baby's godmother-to-be about a frightening incident. When she showed Farwell a sonogram image of their baby, he exploded in anger, shouting, "That's not my child," and pushed her to the ground. It was a shocking moment that left Sandra feeling scared and confused. Later that month, Farwell asked for a key to her apartment, which she made for him at Walmart. When he came to pick it up, Sandra noticed he was acting strangely. He started looking around her bathroom and closet, which made her uneasy. She texted a friend about it, saying, "It was just really odd he started looking around." Her friend agreed it was weird, but Sandra tried to convince herself that maybe he was just coming around. On February 1st, 2021, as a powerful snowstorm approached Massachusetts, Sandra was excited for a cozy snow day after her school announced an early closure. She quickly texted Farwell, hoping they could spend some time together. But his response was short and cold. He wouldn't be in the area. What Sandra didn't know was that Farwell's wife was about to give birth to their third child. Meanwhile, Sandra was busy planning her future as a mom. In the days leading up to her death, she had prepared for a Valentine's Day pregnancy announcement and even scheduled an appointment with her doctor. That afternoon, Sandra excitedly texted Farwell about a baby gift that had arrived at her apartment and mentioned planning a baby shower in March. She ordered food through DoorDash and went outside to brush snow off her car before returning inside. Throughout the evening, she moved from one task to another, texting friends, shopping online for baby furniture, and chatting with her cousin Barbara over Facebook. At 9:08 p.m., Farwell sent her a message asking if he could come by for a second. Just 2 minutes later, Sandra replied that the door would be open for him. Security cameras captured Farwell entering Sandra's building at 9:40 p.m., wearing a hoodie and face mask. But just 3 minutes later, he hurriedly left again. The next morning brought new life into the world as Farwell's wife gave birth to their son. Later on, an investigative journalist named Kirk Minihane uncovered a startling photo of Farwell cradling his newborn, while still wearing the same clothes he had on when he visited Sandra. By February 4th, 2021, no one had seen Sandra for days. Concerned staff at her school requested a wellness check on her. As snowflakes danced in the cold wind, Canton police arrived at her apartment complex and knocked on her door. The same door she had left open for Farwell, but there was no answer. After checking the parking lot and finding her car buried under snow, they used a key from the property manager to enter her home. The officers moved cautiously through the cluttered kitchen and living room before entering Sandra's bedroom. Inside, they found an unmade bed lit by a desk lamp and Christmas lights twinkling around the window. But then they saw something that made their hearts drop. Sandra's body sat upright on the floor with a black strap around her neck tied to the closet doorknob. Her cell phone lay just out of reach. The response from emergency services was quick but mechanical. Even though it was clear that Sandra could not be saved anymore, they still called in medical responders. A firefighter confirmed her death at 11:46 a.m., noting that there were no signs of foul play or struggle in the room. To those who arrived at the scene, it appeared to be a tragic case of suicide, a heartbreaking end to Sandra's dreams of motherhood and happiness amidst all the chaos surrounding her life. The phone call that shattered Darlene Smith's world came from the Canton police, and it was a call she never expected. They told her they had found Sandra Birchmore's body, and because Darlene was listed as Sandra's emergency contact, she had to hear the terrible news first. The officer on the other end claimed that Sandra had taken her own life. But deep down, Darlene felt a heavy certainty that this couldn't be true. When she called Sandra's cousin, Barbara Wright, they both shared the same feeling of dread. "We agreed something just wasn't right," Barbara remembered. "We didn't believe it was a suicide." As the investigation began, state police reports from that day showed some strange oversights. The trooper who first arrived at Sandra's apartment noted there was nothing suspicious. He examined her body for signs of struggle or abuse but found none. However, he also mentioned there were no marks on her neck to suggest she had fought against the ligature that was used. Even though the police quickly declared her death a suicide, later confirmed by the medical examiner, retired homicide investigator Joe McDonald pointed out that just because something looks like a suicide doesn't mean it is one. "No law enforcement officer can make that determination," he said. One crucial piece of evidence seemed to be overlooked: Sandra's beloved necklace, a delicate gold chain with a pink flamingo charm. Her family discovered it broken on the floor, tangled with a clump of hair that nobody could explain. This hair was never mentioned in any initial police reports. Oddly enough, while the police noted the mess in Sandra's apartment, like trash and cat fur, they missed this important clue. Later, an FBI agent reviewing crime scene photos found the necklace clearly visible in pictures taken before Sandra's body was moved to the morgue. On the day of her death, Sandra had been busy with life, making plans and appointments like any other day. She had even seen her therapist just a day before and expressed no thoughts of wanting to end her life. Despite multiple calls from Sandra's friends and family pointing to Matthew Farwell as someone who could have harmed her, investigators seemed to ignore him as a suspect. Barbara told them directly, "I told them Matt Farwell killed her, but no one listened." While state police chased leads at Sandra's workplace, interviews with her co-workers revealed little information. They described her as seeming off, but never mentioned any fears related to her boyfriend, who they only knew as a Stoughton police officer. One teacher called Sandra an oversharer, but no one reported any concerns about her safety. Darlene Smith was one of the first to mention Farwell's name to investigators. It wasn't until 2 days after they found Sandra's body that they identified him as the last person likely seen with her alive. Surveillance footage from her building showed his tall figure entering just before she died. Even then, the report concluded that the video didn't provide any further information about what happened inside. As Darlene and Barbara struggled with their grief and confusion over Sandra's death, they couldn't shake off their feeling that something terrible had happened. A feeling that would only grow stronger as they sought answers in a case filled with unanswered questions and overlooked clues. The truth about what really happened to Sandra Birchmore seemed buried beneath layers of silence and denial, leaving those who loved her desperate for justice and clarity in a world that felt increasingly dark and uncertain. The evidence from the video was enough to at least bring Matthew Farwell in for questioning. A state police sergeant, who was also from Stoughton and had played hockey with the department, took on the case despite a possible conflict of interest. His relationship with Farwell was unclear, but in his reports he referred to him as Matt, a sign of their familiarity. This casual language made it seem like they were friends rather than just colleagues. When the sergeant met with Farwell in a school parking lot, he listened as Farwell painted a chaotic picture of his relationship with Sandra. Farwell expressed sympathy for her troubled life, mentioning a drunken encounter they had in 2020. He claimed their last intimate moment was in October of that year and denied being the father of Sandra's baby. He described an argument during his last visit to her apartment on February 1st, where he called her crazy and she called him a dick. Despite their fight, Farwell insisted that Sandra showed no signs of being suicidal when he left her that night. He even mentioned that she had other sexual partners while they were together. On February 9, 2021, Farwell handed over his phone to the police. Months later, his work phone from the Stoughton police was also taken as evidence. State troopers examined both phones but found very few clues, almost nothing of interest at all. It seemed odd that there would be so little communication between them. The day after Sandra's body was found, Donna McNamara, Stoughton's first female police chief, became increasingly worried about the many statements regarding Sandra's relationships with the Farwells and Robert Devine. She decided to start an internal investigation led by Deputy Chief Brian Holmes, who brought in retired state police Captain Paul Italian and forensics expert Michael Bates. Known for his work on a high-profile case involving a girl who urged her boyfriend to take his own life through text messages. Within weeks, these investigators uncovered thousands of text messages exchanged between Farwell and Sandra. This was shocking because it contradicted what the state police sergeant had reported, that there was no communication between them and that Farwell had deleted everything. The sergeant's report mentioned some data from Sandra's laptop about her relationships with other men, but claimed there were no threats of harm from anyone, including Farwell. However, the internal investigation revealed serious evidence of statutory rape in those text messages. As a result of these findings, the Stoughton Police Department placed Farwell on paid leave in February 2021, but they did not press any felony charges against him. The case seemed to stall for years without any real progress. Then, in 2023, things began to change when journalist Kirk Minihane released a podcast about Sandra's case. Among those who listened was Melissa "Mizzy" Berry, a content creator who focuses on helping families of homicide victims. Inspired by the podcast, Mizzy and a friend decided to dig deeper into Sandra's story. Nobody was talking about Sandra, Mizzy explained, so I started the Justice for Sandra Birchmore Facebook page in February 2023. She reached out to everyone connected to Sandra and eventually got in touch with Barbara Wright, Sandra's cousin. Barbara had been one of the last people to talk to Sandra on the night she died. Sandra called her all the time, Mizzy said passionately. Nobody thought she committed suicide. Nobody. With renewed interest in Sandra's story and support from people like Mizzy and Barbara, hope began to rise that justice might finally be served for Sandra Birchmore, a young woman whose life had been filled with struggles but whose memory would not be forgotten. In August 2023, a group of determined supporters gathered outside the office of Norfolk District Attorney Michael Morrissey, seeking answers about Sandra Birchmore's death. They held signs and handed out flyers, their voices united in a call for justice. Melissa "Mizzy" Berry, one of the leaders of the group, recalled their efforts. We wrote letters and marched to his office, but he was supposedly on vacation. Despite this setback, their social media campaign gained momentum, keeping Sandra's story alive in the public eye. Their movement even attracted supporters from another case involving a woman named Karen Red, which was also handled by the same district attorney's office. As a result, the Justice for Sandra Birchmore Facebook page grew to more than 14,000 members. While Sandra's supporters fought for justice, FBI agents were quietly conducting their own investigation. They uncovered thousands of text messages that dated back to 2019, painting a very different picture from what state police had reported. The FBI brought in Bill Smock, an expert on cases involving strangulation and asphyxiation. He had previously testified in a high-profile trial, and his analysis challenged the state police's conclusions. He pointed out that a fracture in Sandra's hyoid bone didn't match the way she was found seated in her apartment. Smock explained that such fractures usually happen during strangulation or full-body weight hangings, not when someone is sitting down. On August 27, 2024, the evidence gathered by the FBI led a federal judge to issue an arrest warrant for Matthew Farwell. The next morning, Farwell was completely unaware of what was about to happen. Now a truck company owner instead of a police officer, he drove his gravel truck to a shopping plaza in Revere. Suddenly, a team of heavily armed FBI SWAT agents surrounded his vehicle and ordered him to step out with his hands up. Farwell complied without putting up a fight as they arrested him on charges related to Sandra's death. Later that day, he appeared in court for the first time since his arrest. Prosecutors argued against granting him bail, stating that he had killed Sandra Birchmore, a young pregnant woman he had exploited for years. They claimed he had tried to hide his actions by staging her death to look like a suicide. Acting U.S. Attorney Joshua Levy stated during a press conference that Farwell had used his knowledge as a former police officer to cover up what he did. He said, "Mr. Farwell went over to her apartment that evening and he strangled Sandra Birchmore to death." This revelation sent shockwaves through the community. In September 2024, Farwell decided not to have a hearing for his release and chose to stay in federal custody instead. It was unclear if he had anywhere else to go. His wife had removed all traces of him from social media and remained silent about the case. As Farwell awaited trial, The ripples of this disturbing case continued to spread throughout the community. His twin brother, William Farwell, who had also been involved with Sandra, faced serious allegations himself. He had lost his law enforcement certification after it was revealed that he had searched police databases for information about Sandra and lied about their relationship. William had also been intimate with Sandra just weeks before her death, while knowing she claimed to be pregnant with his brother's child. Meanwhile, Robert Devine, another officer connected to Sandra's case, was placed on leave and later resigned after internal investigations into his conduct with her. Joshua Heel, a former animal control officer who had also been involved with Sandra, resigned from his job and began cooperating with federal investigators. The Justice for Sandra Birchmore movement continued to grow stronger every day. What started as a small group of concerned citizens became a powerful force demanding accountability from those who had failed Sandra and her family. Mizzy Berry declared passionately, "We'll be out there until they're held accountable," showing that no matter how long it took, they would not give up fighting for justice for Sandra Birchmore, a young woman whose life was taken too soon, but whose story would not be forgotten. On the morning of July 5, 2012, the peaceful silence at the condo on Forest Hill Road shattered. Jonathan Krupe, Simonet's husband, was the one to find her. He walked into the living room and froze. There, lying face down on the floor, was Simonet's body, cold and still. Jonathan's heart raced as he saw her unmoving figure, his mind reeling with shock and disbelief. As he moved closer, the horrible reality struck him. His beloved wife, Simonet, was gone. His first instinct was to call 911, his voice shaking as he reported what he claimed looked like a robbery gone terribly wrong. His words were full of panic, yet there was something strangely off about his reaction. Something that would later make others question his story. Simonet's body told a story of pain and struggle. She had suffered 15 brutal stab wounds, each one a merciless reminder of the violence she had faced. Defensive wounds on her hands showed she tried to fight back, desperately resisting the attack. The knife marks on her back and neck revealed a vicious assault, leaving her with little chance to escape. There were also bruises on her body, suggesting she may have fallen down the stairs, possibly in a frantic attempt to escape. Her lifeless form painted a tragic picture of someone who had once been full of life and promise, now taken by a horrifying act of cruelty. The police estimated she had been killed between 2 a.m. and 7:30 a.m., hours before Jonathan's frantic call to 911. It was a cruel twist of fate. Just days before their 5th wedding anniversary, Simonet had lost her life in the very home where she had once found happiness. Simonet Mapes seemed to have it all: a fulfilling job, a loving husband, and a commitment to her community through volunteering at her local church. As a schoolteacher known for her constant smile, she appeared to embody the ideal life. Born on September 25, 1982, in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Simonet's childhood was shaped by frequent relocations due to her father's career in the Air Force. By 1990, the family had settled in New York after moving from sunny Florida. Simonet thrived academically and went on to graduate from Fort Hamilton High School. She pursued a degree in education at the College of Staten Island, where she laid the foundation for her career. In 2006, Simonet began teaching social studies in Brooklyn. Despite facing challenges, she chose to engage with her students rather than shy away from their struggles. Simonet founded initiatives such as the Girls Leadership Club and the Fairy Godmother Project, which provided prom dresses to underprivileged students. Her dedication to education and community service made her well known and loved. While her professional life flourished, Simonet's personal life blossomed as well. She met Jonathan Krupe, an English teacher at her school, and they quickly fell in love.
Smitten and captivated from that first night?
Oh yes. Oh yes, she was very much in love.
What did she say to you?
She said, "Mom, this is it. This is going to be the guy. I really love him." You know, and I remember telling her, "Simonet, but you just met him." No, but I know. And he used to write her love letters. Every day, she'd have a love letter, and she saved them all.
She wasn't real quick to give her heart away. We liked him. We were happy. We were very happy.
What was it about him that made you guys think he was a great guy?
Well, you know, whatever my daughter wanted, he gave. He was very homebody. He used to make her laugh all the time. They were just very much compatible.
The couple married in 2007, promising to support one another through thick and thin. They settled into their condo on Forest Hill Road in Staten Island, building a life together filled with joy and love. Simonet continued her work at the School of Classics, while Jonathan also worked there. Their early years together were filled with trips to Disney World and an abundance of happy memories captured in photos. Simonet also volunteered with the ASPCA and supported the Leukemia Foundation. She adopted dogs, filling their home with warmth and affection. But as summer approached in 2012, cracks began to appear in the seemingly perfect life Simonet had built. The couple faced unforeseen challenges, setting in motion a tragic series of events that would change everything. Jonathan Krupe had been living a life of deception. As he and Simonet neared graduation with their master's degrees, a strange detail caught Simonet's attention. Her husband's name was missing from the list of graduates. When she confronted him, Jonathan gave a bizarre excuse, claiming the school had trouble spelling his name. Though Simonet found it hard to believe, she chose to trust him, hoping it was just a misunderstanding. Yet, something felt off and her instincts kept nagging at her. One evening, as Simonet went through his phone's call log, she saw a number that had been dialed frequently. Curiosity got the better of her, and she called it. A woman named Miss Pumpkin answered, and their brief conversation left Simonet feeling unsettled. Despite having no hard evidence, she suspected her husband was cheating on her, but the truth didn't come to light just yet. As time passed, Simonet discovered a more disturbing secret. Jonathan had been diverting their joint funds to several escort services. This revelation ignited a fierce argument between them. Funds that should have been used for his education were instead being spent on infidelity, leaving Simonet feeling betrayed and humiliated. The trust between them had been shattered, but Jonathan's lies continued. The final blow came on July 5, 2012. Simonet's lifeless body was found face down on their living room floor, her back and neck punctured by 15 brutal stab wounds. The murder weapon had pierced vital organs, causing her to bleed out in what must have been a slow, agonizing death. Defensive wounds on her hands revealed that she had fought desperately for her life, but additional bruises suggested she may have been thrown down the stairs in a violent rage before she was killed. It was a horrific end for a woman with so much potential. Just 2 days before their 5th wedding anniversary, Jonathan Krupe said he woke up early at 6:45 a.m. He let Simonet sleep in, claiming he didn't want to disturb her. At 7:30 a.m., he said he gently touched her shoulder to wake her up before leaving for errands and to get his car inspected. He also claimed Simonet had asked him to pick up some school materials. Jonathan later said he spent the rest of the morning in Brooklyn, watching a performance of Wicked. Afterward, he went to Simonet's office around 10:06 a.m. to retrieve some things, then texted her about it. When she didn't reply, he became a bit worried, but he brushed it off and wandered through a few shoe stores. He said he didn't find anything he liked. At 11:50 a.m., still without a response from Simonet, he sent another text message and then went to Home Depot to buy paint. He claimed he tried calling her again at 12:15 p.m., but she didn't answer. Feeling uneasy, he decided not to go inside the store and instead returned home. When he entered their condo, he said he found Simonet's lifeless body. In a panic, he immediately called 911, telling the operator it looks like a robbery gone wrong. "Please help me." When the police arrived at the scene, Jonathan Krupe quickly suggested that Simonet's murder might be gang-related. He claimed that their recent experience of surviving a shootout had somehow linked her death to gang retaliation. He even recalled a recent Facebook post by Simonet, where she urged Staten Island youth to avoid idolizing Brooklyn gangsters who had no real understanding of violence. However, the police struggled to find any connection between Simonet and any street gang that would justify such an attack. The community, still in shock, believed Jonathan's explanation, assuming her death was the result of gang retaliation. The tragic loss hit Simonet's parents, Teresa and John Mapes, hard. In a heartfelt tribute, her mother spoke through tears, remembering the joy Simonet brought into her life.
I wanted you to know how much I love you, and that I never stopped thinking of the day that you were born. It was so beautiful, and I was so happy. The day you were 3 years old, and we were so sick, we were afraid we were going to lose you. The first day of school, and how you cried to come home. The day you graduated high school with honors and on the dean's list. And of course, that's my Simonet. The day you turned sweet 16. So beautiful. The day you came home and told me, Mom, I got a tattoo, please don't be mad. The day you came home and told me, I'm running away, and we had to chase you all the way to Queens. The day you came home and told me, Mom, I'm going to college to become a teacher. That's exactly what I want to do. I want to teach these kids how to be better people. The day you came home and told me, I got my bachelor's, Mom. The day you came home and told me, Mom, I got a job with the New York City Department of Ed. The day you came home and told me, Mom, I got my master's. And I got it with honors. Well, that's the party we never got to have. Well, the day you told me when Dad was laying in bed, they thought that he had lung cancer. And you told me, Mom, don't worry, I will never leave you. And you're gonna come live with me, Mom. I never got to see that day. Thank God in a way, because Dad's still here, but you're not. I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. It's a pain I have to live with. But this video is for you, Simonet. I love you so much.
I want you to know how much I love you. I never stopped thinking of the day you were born. It was beautiful. I remember the day you turned sweet 16, so lovely. And when you told me about your tattoo, I just wanted you to be happy. Her father, too, expressed his grief and frustration, speaking to the media with a plea for help. We need to catch the person who did this. They're out there and they could hurt someone else. My daughter didn't deserve this. With tears in his eyes, he vowed to never rest until the killer was found and justice was served. As mourners gathered to honor Simonet, the weight of grief was palpable. Friends, family, and colleagues silently paid their respects, lost in memories of the beloved teacher and friend. Among the sea of sorrowful faces, one stood out, Jonathan Krupe. His sobs echoed through the church as he clutched a rosary, kissing 2 roses before placing them on Simonet's casket. His visible anguish seemed genuine, but doubts began to surface. Just days earlier, he had suggested that everyone move on from her death, making his display of grief seem oddly staged.
This doesn't happen, to us. It didn't seem real. It didn't seem right. Nobody would want to hurt Simonet. Nobody.
In the days that followed Simonet's funeral, Jonathan's actions grew more unsettling. Shortly after her burial, he began a new relationship with a woman who looked eerily similar to Simonet. He distanced himself from her family, forbidding Simonet's mother, Teresa, from gathering her daughter's belongings. These actions caused a ripple of unease among the Mapes family, who were left wondering about Jonathan's true role in Simonet's death, though they hoped justice would soon be served.
I want you to think, who could do this? He says, we need to get beyond this.
That's how we knew, there's something wrong here. There's something wrong here. There were no tears. There was no emotion, you know, nothing. He was more annoyed that the cops were bothering him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was more annoyed.
Like, how dare you?
Yeah.
Because you're nothing.
So instead of tears, instead of genuine emotion, what you saw was a man who was then, the very night of the murder, sleeping on your couch and asking to share pizza with you.
Mm-hmm.
And asking you as the parents to move on from her murder.
Yes, exactly.
The police investigation soon revealed a disturbing timeline. Simonet had been killed between 2 a.m. and 7:30 a.m., well before Jonathan made his 911 call at 2:20 p.m. His attempts to stage the scene as a home invasion began to unravel as investigators found no evidence supporting his alibi. He claimed to have spent time in Brooklyn watching a performance of Wicked, but there was no movie ticket or any proof of his activities. Instead, it came to light that he had spent the afternoon with a sex worker named Miss Pumpkin, the same woman Simonet had discovered in Jonathan's phone records. Further investigation into Simonet's school life revealed that she had all the necessary materials at home, contradicting Jonathan's story about needing to pick them up. The couple had been facing significant strain due to Jonathan's lies about his education and finances. Simonet had recently uncovered that Jonathan had spent over $50,000 on escort services and had dropped out of his master's program without telling her. In light of this, she had threatened divorce and was contemplating legal separation when she was murdered. The investigation took an even more chilling turn when it was discovered that Jonathan had searched online for ways to clean up a crime scene and eliminate DNA traces with bleach.
Investigators found Jonathan had been surfing the internet, plugging in how to throat slash and what destroys DNA.
He had done some Google searches, how to stab somebody, how to clean up a crime scene, to use Clorox with DNA.
But the most damning evidence was Jonathan's penchant for strippers and prostitutes.
He had an affection for prostitutes. He used the money that he got to go to school to pay for the prostitute services.
This discovery, combined with mounting evidence, led to his arrest in November 2012. He was charged with second-degree murder and criminal possession of a weapon. The Mapes family, though devastated by their daughter's death, felt a sense of vindication. Their suspicions about Jonathan's involvement in Simonet's murder were confirmed. Despite overwhelming evidence, including Jonathan's suspicious alibi, financial motives, and internet searches, he maintained his innocence throughout the trial in the summer of 2015. The prosecution presented a compelling case, focusing on Jonathan's relationship with Miss Pumpkin and the lies he had told about his education and finances. Miss Pumpkin testified that Jonathan had introduced himself as Mike when they first met and admitted receiving calls from angry wives but denied speaking directly to Simonet. She recalled meeting Jonathan at a motel on the day of Simonet's murder and noted there were no visible signs of any physical altercation on his body. Even after Simonet's brutal murder, Jonathan Krupe's disturbing behavior didn't stop. Just a month later, he resumed contact with Miss Pumpkin, the escort he had been involved with before Simonet's death. They began meeting regularly, spending up to 90 minutes together each week at his parents' house, without their knowledge. During one of these meetings, Jonathan casually brought up a recent news story about a murdered Brooklyn schoolteacher. When Miss Pumpkin confirmed she had heard about it, Jonathan shockingly revealed that the victim was his wife. As he spoke, emotion seemed to overtake him, and he struggled to hold back tears, though his tears seemed less about the loss and more about the weight of his deception unraveling. The trial for Simonet's murder was a 5-week ordeal, culminating in a guilty verdict on July 20, 2015. The jury found Jonathan guilty of stabbing Simonet to death. It took them only 2 hours to reach their decision.
A long time. Took a long time, but we finally got it. We knew after 3 days, maybe before, but the first 3 days it was a shock to us. But after that we knew. Just didn't understand why he made his family go through this, made everybody go through this. But he's a demon. He's a psychopath. You know, our lives are still gonna be messed up. Always. It's a new normal. Something that we never forget. You know, we think about this all day, every day. We don't cry all day, but we cry every day. You know what I mean? So we're sad because, you know, this was one of our, he was like a son to us. He really was. It's something we never, ever seen or would even expect. And this psychopath did this. It's unconscionable. I just don't understand, but we're very, very happy. Very, very happy. Thank God for that jury. Thank you, Jesus.
This has been long awaited. 3 years, and he got what he deserved. I just hope the sentencing matches. Thank you. And my baby can rest in peace. Amen. Amen.
For Simonet's family, the conviction was both a moment of justice and a painful reality check. He's a demon, a psychopath, one relative said. Our lives are forever changed. This is our new normal. Jonathan, clearly shocked by the life sentence of 25 years to life, maintained his innocence during the proceedings. He offered an unclear apology in court but stood firm in his claim of being wrongfully convicted. His defense team filed an appeal in 2019, arguing that the search warrants used to access his electronics were illegal. However, the appeal was denied, leaving Jonathan's earliest possible release date set for 2037. Life in prison didn't slow Jonathan down. Within months of his incarceration, he posted an ad on a pen pal service, seeking companionship. He claimed not to care about race or religion, just wanting someone fun and intelligent. In the ad, he reiterated his innocence, insisting that he was the victim of a corrupt justice system. Teresa Mapes, Simonet's mother, came across the ad and was horrified. She immediately contacted the Clinton Correctional Facility, demanding its removal. To her, it was a slap in the face to her family and everyone who had supported them through the trial. She warned the facility about Jonathan's dangerous and unstable nature, recalling how he had mistreated their dogs before Simonet's death, breaking their backs when they misbehaved. Despite his life behind bars, Jonathan's disturbing actions continue to haunt Simonet's family. Teresa has channeled her grief into creating a Facebook group where she and others celebrate Simonet's life and honor her memory. The group has grown to over 1,000 members, all united by their love for Simonet, the teacher whose life was taken too soon. In the early hours of March 2, 2010, a quiet suburban street became the backdrop to a brutal massacre. At exactly 3:10 a.m., a 25-year-old woman named Angela Kramer, hiding in a closet, made a frantic call to the Darien Police Department. Her words were barely audible. She whispered that an intruder had entered her family home and opened fire. The terror in her voice was unmistakable, as she tried to stay as silent as possible, fearing the sound of her own breath would give away her hiding spot. The operator struggled to understand her, but managed to gather that there had been shots fired, and that Angela was in grave danger. As the 911 dispatcher attempted to keep her on the line, the sounds of muffled footsteps and distant shouting echoed through the phone, adding to the frantic urgency of the situation. Angela's voice grew faint, and then, just before the line went dead, she whispered one final word, "Please." The connection was lost. The police rushed to the Kramer house, arriving just moments after her desperate call. As they approached, they saw a young man climbing out of a basement window. It was Anthony, Angela's older brother. He was scared and confused, not knowing what had happened inside but desperate to escape the chaos. The officers quickly understood he wasn't the bad guy. He was another victim trying to survive. The Kramer family had been well known and loved in their small town. Jeffrey was a hardworking man who owned a towing business, while Lori, his wife, dedicated herself to teaching. Their 3 children, Anthony, Angela, and Michael, were bright and full of dreams. They had built a happy life together in their cozy home. But inside that home, tragedy struck. As the police entered, they discovered a scene that would haunt them forever. Jeffrey lay lifeless at the front door, Lori was found on the stairs, and Michael was near the garage. Each of them had been shot multiple times, their lives taken away without mercy. The officers felt a deep sadness as they realized that this family's world had been shattered in an instant. Meanwhile, Angela remained hidden in her closet. When officers finally found her, they gently led her outside with her eyes covered so she wouldn't see the horror inside her home. Anthony stood nearby, shaken by what he had witnessed as he escaped from the basement. As police secured the area, a young woman approached them with tears in her eyes. She was Michael's girlfriend and had spent the night at their house.
Tell me what happened. I was asleep on the couch and I heard a crash coming from like the outside, like the street coming in, so like the window, and then I heard a shot. And he was like, "Oh my God," and then I think he got shot. Like I heard a gunshot, and then I ran.
She described how she saw a man dressed in black break through the living room window and struggle with Michael before fleeing into the night. Her words painted a picture of fear and confusion. As Michael tried to escape, the sound of gunfire rang out, and the killer's bullets struck him down. Hearing the chaos, Jeffrey and Lori rushed downstairs, only to meet the same terrible fate as their son. The scene was horrifying, with spent shell casings from a .40 caliber gun scattered across the floor, footprints leading away into the snowy night, and nothing valuable taken from the house. It was clear that this was not a robbery but a targeted attack. Investigating officers questioned whether the family had any enemies. Anthony, still struggling to comprehend the tragedy, couldn't provide any leads. However, Angela mentioned her ex-boyfriend, Johnny Borzoff.
I just split up with the father of my son right after Christmas.
Good guy?
He has his issues.
What kind of issues?
Anger management.
Who had a history of anger issues and had recently broken up with her. Angela had met Johnny through her previous boyfriend, Steve, who tragically died in a motorcycle accident. After Steve's passing, Angela began dating Johnny, but his unemployment and dubious claims of working late nights collecting vending machine revenue raised suspicions that lingered like an ominous shadow. Angela and Johnny Borzoff had been in a 2-year relationship, but his possessiveness escalated after their child was born. The Kramer family, who valued close relationships, grew concerned as Johnny restricted Angela's interactions with them. Tensions mounted, culminating in violent incidents a year before the murders. Johnny pulled a switchblade on Jeffrey, threatening to kill him, and later got into a physical fight with Lori at a baby shower. On the night of the murders, Johnny had custody of their child, who thankfully was not at the crime scene. Before police could question him, Johnny contacted them.
100, what is your emergency? Johnny Borzoff. I just saw the news, and I think my girlfriend's house got shot up.
Why are you concerned about it? Can I ask?
Is that a home invasion or whatever? I don't know.
You would like to see an officer?
Yeah.
Expressing concern for Angela's safety. During questioning, he provided a solid alibi supported by CCTV footage, placing him at a casino until 4 a.m., an hour after the 3 a.m. shooting. Despite his alibi, investigators scrutinized Johnny's phone records and found frequent calls from a burner phone. The caller identified himself as Jake and expressed paranoia about being followed. A subsequent tip led investigators to Jake Darcy, a roommate who allegedly made disturbing comments about the Kramer family murders. Jake Darcy's strange behavior set off alarm bells. His roommate described him as super weird and paranoid, raising eyebrows among those around him. Investigators discovered Jake had ties to Johnny Borzoff and Michael Kramer, 2 friends who had recently fallen out. This fallout was fueled by Jake's lies about his friendship with Johnny, whom Michael couldn't stand. Jake's dark past came to light. He battled depression since he was just 10 years old, a struggle rooted in his strict Jehovah's Witness upbringing. The harsh rules and punishments from his parents drove him towards substance abuse as a way to cope. His life took a nosedive. He lost 2 close friends recently and was once part of the same social circle as Michael until their explosive fallout. Jacob Darcy's fragile mental state worsened after catching his girlfriend with another friend. He had met Johnny Borzoff while buying drugs from him, and Johnny bragged about being part of a large drug-dealing gang, swearing Jacob to secrecy. However, Michael Kramer discovered their connection, leading to the fallout between Jacob and Michael. Investigations revealed that Jacob purchased a .40 caliber handgun days before the murders. His burner phone's location tracked south to Florida, where his parents lived. Police found Jacob sleeping in his car outside his parents' home and arrested him for questioning. "Did you do it?" investigators asked. Jacob's response was filled with fear. "I'm scared," he pleaded. "He'll go after my family. I opened my mouth. They'll hurt them." The interrogator reassured him. "Tell the truth, and we'll protect you and your family. We'll deal with everyone involved." Jacob's fear and possible guilt hung heavily in the air. "I'll tell the truth," Jacob pleaded. "My family will be safe, right?" Investigators reassured him, and Jacob revealed Johnny Borzoff's threats. "Kill the Kramers, or you and your family will be killed." Jacob feared Johnny's connections to a powerful drug gang. "However, Johnny warned me that if I ran, his gang would find me and hurt my family." Jacob felt trapped, believing Johnny's threats and fearing the gang's reach. Johnny had also mentioned the upcoming custody battle between Angela and himself, using Jacob's vulnerability against him. According to Jacob, Johnny Borzoff's motive was to silence Angela, who threatened to expose his alleged drug gang in their custody battle. Johnny manipulated Jacob into believing that Angela and her family had to be eliminated. He presented himself as a powerful figure, claiming a larger gang would carry out multiple murders to eliminate potential witnesses. Jacob thought this was like a scene from Breaking Bad. However, investigators found no evidence of other murders or unknown bodies. It became clear that Johnny Borzoff was a small-time drug dealer who exploited Jacob's vulnerabilities. Jacob struggled with mental health issues, substance abuse, and personal difficulties. Johnny took advantage of these weaknesses, using Jacob to target the Kramer family. "I was completely used," Jacob realized. "I thought I had no other options." Johnny's true nature was revealed. A small-time drug dealer who found a vulnerable accomplice to carry out his vendetta against the Kramer family. Johnny Borzoff and Jacob Nadersee were arrested and charged with multiple counts of murder.
I said, "I can't believe there's no other way. I can't believe it's come down to this." And then I said, "I guess I really don't have much of a choice." He said to put one bullet in each of their heads to make sure that they were dead. And he said to make the shooting look as if it was done by a gangbanger. The plan, according to Mr. Borzoff, was that he would be under cameras, bar or casino.
And you had no idea where he was when you were in the Kramer's house killing people, did you?
I only knew what the plan was supposed to be.
Back in 2010, you broke into the Kramer house, and you did that to Michael Kramer, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Let me show you another photograph. People's Exhibit number 121 for identification. You shot Michael Kramer in the head after he crawled into the kitchen to try to get away from your first bullets, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
That's the gun you used to blow away the Kramer family, is it not?
Yes.
You made the decision to purchase the gun, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And you made the decision when you broke a hole in the Kramer home to take that gun and go inside and fire it at least 11 times, didn't you?
Yes.
Johnny Borzoff did not put this gun in your hand, did he?
No.
Johnny Borzoff did not load the clip for you, did he?
It's becoming redundant, but no.
Are you bored, Jake?
No, I'm bored a lot in jail. This is kind of exciting for me.
The duo was held without bond, facing charges for the March 2nd slayings of Jeffrey, Lori, and Michael Kramer. DuPage County prosecutors stated Jacob Nadersee confessed to the murders, alleging Johnny Borzoff masterminded the attack. The motive was revenge against Angela Kramer, Johnny's ex-partner, amid a bitter custody battle over their infant son. Angela, hiding in a closet, survived the attack and called 911. Prosecutors revealed that Borzoff and Nadersee were intentionally placed in adjacent cells. Johnny Borzoff boasted to Jacob Nadersee in jail, saying, "The drug gang will get me out, and you better watch what you say." Unbeknownst to Johnny, police monitored their conversations, confirming Jacob's testimony. In 2011, Jacob pleaded guilty to the triple murders and cooperated with the prosecution against Johnny, who pleaded not guilty. His trial began in 2013. prosecutors revealed Johnny's specific instructions to Jacob: break in through a window, stay committed, and kill everyone, especially Angela. Johnny's defense targeted Jacob's mental health, trying to discredit him as a witness. However, Jacob testified that Johnny told him to shoot each victim once in the head, make it look like a gang-related shooting, and create an alibi by being seen at a casino. The prosecution emphasized the premeditated nature of the crimes. In 2010, Jacob Nadersey broke into the Kramer home and shot Michael Kramer in the head. Prosecutors presented evidence, including photograph 121, showing Jacob's actions. Jacob admitted to purchasing the gun, breaking into the Kramer home, and firing the gun at least 11 times. The jury found Johnny Borzoff guilty on all 3 counts and sentenced him to life without parole. Jacob Nadersey received 75 years in prison. The Kramer family murders were a consequence of Johnny's twisted desire for revenge against the family, who held a strong dislike for him due to his behavior. Johnny's mother, Christine, insists on his innocence and supports his release through the Freedom Project, highlighting his severe health problems. As of August 2023, Johnny remains incarcerated, despite being reported to have only 90 days to live as of December 2021.